Good day. My name is Michael Bendner with the Center for Fiscal Equity. These are our comments on the Budget Committee's hearing on the CBO's budget and economic outlook for the current president's budget, or the new president's budget being considered. These comments will address the problems in the CBO projections, and more importantly, suggest alternate policies that will be necessary to deal with inflation, a likely mortgage security crisis, and ways for the nation to increase economic well-being while also saving costs. I'll start by addressing the main points in the CEO executive summary. The main rubric, debt as percentage of GDP, is meaningless. The more salient measure is debt as a multiple of income taxes paid. Using this standard shows exactly how unsustainable our current fiscal course is and why. The first attachment, which I will link to in the comments regarding debt ownership and class warfare, addresses this. The key findings of our research is that the top 10% own the majority of public debt assets and owe the majority of debt obligations. The top 1% owe over a third and own more than 40%. And that includes, Social Security assets as well, because, they can be attributed to beneficiaries. So, I'm not one of those people who says that only debt held by the public can be allocated. So CBO remarks on how revenues are at their highest point in 20 years as a percentage of GDP. Are kind of misleading. The problem is that over the last 20 years, revenues have been entirely too low, largely because the top marginal rates on income taxes, essentially on wages, and the capital gains and dividend rates have been set too low by statute. CBO and most others have no real idea why inflation is essentially out of control. This will cause the Federal Reserve to overcorrect. More importantly, unless tax increases on the wealthy are perceived as inevitable, thus reducing wildly inflated asset prices slowly, a more catastrophic recession is inevitable. See the second attachment for why this is the case. Second attachment is on Depression 2022. In preparation for these comments, I've updated the Center's model for predicting economic growth based on prior year's deficits, less net interest as a percentage of GDP. Please see the first attachment for more details. Assuming that the current year results in a net deficit of 0.3%, and that's deficit minus deficit plus net interest. One's negative, one's positive, so they offset. The GDP growth rate for 2023 will be 3.8%. This prediction assumes that the bottom does not fall out of the economy, which I regard as a heroic assumption. Now moving on to inflation and cryptocurrency. I address these topics in my FY23 financial services appropriations testimony, items 1 and 2. The video will be linked to. The world has plenty of available oil to the Department of Labor should also have a part in this investigation and should receive reimbursable funding to do so. Next, housing and commercial bonds. The inevitable crash has not yet occurred. Again, if there is no oil price crash, mortgage-backed securities may not crash in the same way as they did in 2008. If they do, however, the recovery will be anemic until taxes on the wealthy return to pre-Tax and Jobs Act levels. Failure to let tax rates on the wealthy go up in 2010 slowed the recovery until the 2013 tax increases. The other reason for the recovery was anemic is that nothing was done for homeowners and underwater mortgages. Underwater mortgages, waiting for incomes to increase, debt to be paid down, or homes to be foreclosed upon, which happened all too frequently, including to my family, broke the promise made in October 2008 when Wall Street was bailed out, but no one else was. In both my FY 2022 and FY 2023 financial services appropriations testimony, I address this issue as well. The video will be linked, both and as well as the hard copy. See item 3, starting with when the Fed markets bonds to market, going to let us act truthfully this time around. Next, we talk about nutrition and healthcare for seniors and the disabled. Again, please see my testimony on my personal journey into food stamps. The link is in the link to the video, and the written comments are in the chat. Also, see labor and HHS appropriations testimony for my dual eligible story, and the video will also be linked to. So when Social Security was established, one of its goals was to avoid the perception that receiving benefits was not going on the dole. It was expected that individuals would still save for their retirements and would receive pensions as well. As unions were broken and pensions plans for both workers and professionals were replaced with defined contribution plans, this assumption became a joke. Likewise, because most workers and their families cannot make ends meet, the vast majority of retirees have no or little savings to rely on. Those who do have savings, especially those with tax advantages, likely did not need such advantages to begin with. For them, Social Security is simply a backstop. For the rest of us, it is a necessity. The myth that the Social Security Trust Fund must be solvent is no longer appropriate. The program has been accepted in all sectors as necessary. Now it needs to be made adequate. There are those who resist doing so because providing more support fear idleness among the elderly, because they think that providing more support for fear idleness among the elderly and disabled, that we somehow won't want to work or will want to retire too soon. These are the same conservatives who believe, without evidence, that leaving minimum wages and child tax credits low will encourage workers to seek higher paid jobs. The reality is that such workers have no means to prepare themselves for such advancement. It is almost as if there is a desire by some to guarantee a ready supply of low-wage workers for certain industries who employ people who do not look like them, to say it delicately. America needs a raise. Benefits need to go up, with or without higher revenues. As fortune would have it, increasing the minimum wage will allow for higher benefits and will increase the long-term revenues. In previous comments to the Budget Committee, I have addressed how increasing both the minimum wage and the child tax credit at the same time allows setting a minimum wage below $50 an hour, but doing so at a high enough level so that no one will, as Senator Manchin fears, support their families on the child tax credit alone. So if you don't want to do that, make work pay. Raising the minimum wage, as well as paying it to participants in training and education programs from ESL to GED to technical training to working for an associate's degree, will increase wages for every worker under the middle management level, which are actually people who make like over $150,000. They're essentially the real middle class who hold 1/3 who get 1/3 of the GDP, and the top 4% get the other third. This is the vast majority of households, or about 80% of those who file income taxes, as well as many who did not. Again, including retirees. So there are many theories on why workers have fallen behind while investors and managers have continued to gain income at the rates occurring before 2017. Many assert that the end of the gold standard was the cause and that going back will fix all things. This is a great theory if one holds gold. The reality is that the gold standard was not working. The only alternative, and it is one that could be used today, is to forego currency arbitrage and adopt a worldwide system based on production power parity, a common market basket of goods produced in each national economy, or the entire set of them. Many point to tax cuts on the wealthy as the reason workers have fallen behind. Many time series data show that things started to get bad when the Kennedy-Johnson income tax cuts took effect in 1965, with the Reagan tax cuts of 1981, which were set in stone in 1986 reform, the true cause. Many blame the information revolution and the rise of automation for the loss of labor power, along with gutting of union rights, which is now being addressed by the Biden administration. All three of these reasons are somewhat true and are certainly interrelated. For example, tax cuts on investors and managers provide an incentive to cut labor costs and inflation with it. There is one more reason, however, that no one talks about: math. To wit, when compensation begins to diverge, annual raises in both public and private sector grew at or near the rate of inflation. The problem is that price levels overall chase the median income, which is not uniform. There is a way out of this, and it can start with government workers, the military, and government contractors. End the practice of percentage increases based on current wage and salary levels. Instead, increase wages on an equal dollar basis. Instead of giving everyone a 4% wage increase, give them the same dollar per hour increase. Because the wage increase on the percentage change of the median wage, or base the wage increase on the percentage change of the median wage in the economy. In time, equality will be restored. To make sure it is, increase the tax rates on higher salaries and dividends so that the incentive to cut wages to meet bonus targets goes away. One last comment on inflation and taxation. Capital gains can never be indexed to inflation because all changes to asset values, especially among liquid assets, are more dollars chasing the same goods or shares. In other words, if capital gains were adjusted by the rate of inflation, there would be no gains to tax. Doing this is out of the question. Thank you for your kind attention. As usual with YouTube videos, please comment, please subscribe, please share. And you can do Patreon if you wish. Although I'm not asking government people to give me Patreon support, that would be unethical. But if you're in the policy field, please do follow the links. The attachments again are the GDP estimate for FY23. I've got some nice tables and charts. Depression 2022, and debt ownership as class warfare. Again, thank you very much. Have a pleasant day. Bye-bye.